Hello, welcome. This is going to be the Daily Dharma once again. My name is Dina. Thank you so much for joining. And today, pick up the deck, split it to the Divine Masculine and Miracle together. And I'm sensing that for some of us, this is whether we're the masculine or another. I sense that someone here in this situation, self or the other, is having an ego sublimation moment, an ego check, and needing to have some sense of reflection and reevaluation of themselves and their actions. So this can definitely be us from time to time, right? Sometimes we, for whatever reason, pop off at the mouth or something, or we might be in a situation where we do something and we weren't aware how it was impacting another. But then there are those, self or other, situationally, that do things for some type of an objective that they may or may not be completely aware of. But I feel that that's what we're talking about here, is this, not the bad part of the impact, but the awareness that comes through for that individual. And I sense that that's the other individual for most of us. And that for us, the mirroring situation in our own self is that choice point where we are acknowledging our power, our options, and our capacity to choose ourselves and to honor thyself here. That breakthrough moment is, it says, the frequency of miracle supports our belief in ourselves as a part of source, and therefore our belief that anything is possible. So let's not waste any time negatively manifesting our fears, instead of proactively looking at options and asking for all of this or better. Show me the way. Oh, and by the way, that's 22 and 33. Those following this broadcast may remember that yesterday we had the 22 and the 23 in the Tao deck, the Tao Te Ching. Let's see what the code cards have for us today on that situation or otherwise. I see the transition card popping out. Number 43. Frequency of transition supports our deep understanding of the ever-changing nature of existence and our lives, so that we can learn to let go, surrender to the process, and allow transition to occur with ease and grace. With the realization card here under the deck, I apologize, I need a drink here. So here is like the choice point, the realization that we can choose to move away from energies that make us feel uncomfortable and to set new, clear boundaries with certain individuals or situations. The realization here is realization of our power, I believe. We get off the top of the deck, 13, coherence. That's about resonance, letting our magnetism. If we look at this transition card, there's an above and a below leg to this swirl array here. And I sense that this is situations at their extremity can show themselves in people who overly gas us up and people who gaslight us and diminish our value on the extremities. And in the center are things that resonate deeply with our proactive, growth-oriented self, our ability to self-develop, to believe in self. And sometimes we can get those lessons and growth, bits of confidence even from the extremities. But at the center, there's a different type of resonance. And this supports our ability to harmonize the frequency of the heart with the frequency of the mind for an optimal ability to create the reality that we desire. And I believe that it's the heart-based resonance that's at the center of this choice point, and the extremities are things that don't feel quite right for one reason or another. There's some type of imbalance or inequality at the extremity, but in the center there's a solid foundation and a basis for coherent understanding and resonant vibrations. People that we feel lit up and engaged in, that divine synergy with. It's like we can't stop talking in some cases, or wanting to go and do this thing versus this other thing. Maybe a change of job. I was just thinking as I flipped the change card, maybe a change of partnership, relationships in different ways, a change of focus for yourself, a change of job, or the way that you spend your time over the next 30 days and the next year. It seems that you'll be moving. You've got transition and change here with coherence in the middle, shifting your energies from engaging in different situations that haven't really felt fulfilling and centered in your truth and your ultimate alignment, dissipating the energy. And now it seems that there's a change and transition there. Oh, romantic love. So, and this doesn't necessarily mean that you are needing to change partners to have this significant change in romance. This, I think, above all, every situation is ultimately pointing back to the self, to shift and evolve our own faulty, in some cases, belief patterns, our perspectives that sabotage instead of uplift. There's a realization of our ability to resonate with what we want and not what we do not want in a situation. I know that as somebody who's had multiple different types of relationships, as I'm sure you have, I've noticed that with certain people, there's competition. With others, there may be suspicion. Another engagement might bring up a bit of envy, or dare I say jealousy, and perhaps not even on the more traditional ways, but there are many things that our energy would wish for that others don't have as much trouble generating in our lives as we seem to. But there's an understanding of somehow taking our own authority here over the next year. Consciousness, it's, I believe, some level of consciousness breakthrough here where we're able to dedicate and commit our energies towards our capacity for not only self-regeneration, but for positively, proactively intending our destiny and fortune to show itself before our eyes. That's like to say, in a nutshell, to manifest what we want and not what we don't want. We will attract what we are expecting. So if you're expecting the worst, then you're going to have a much more difficult time appreciating and figuring things out. You're going to be tense and anxious, where somebody else is going to be able to, like in a fight where you're able to stay loose, you're able to step away. And so any type of impacting kick can just breeze by. You don't even need to absorb the impact. If you can just, like in different martial arts, you just displace somebody's energy. And I said last night to somebody, sometimes the best thing sometimes the best thing that we can do for another individual is not to give advice, but to get out of their way. Because the best way for them to learn is by exploring their own coherence. And nobody can speak that into being for them or for us. So consciousness is shifting. This came out yesterday. I really apologize for the clearing of my throat. Delight. So, consciousness with delight, the more happiness that we can invoke in ourselves, we can magnetize back into our environment, our situations. It's by expecting ourselves to be worked with and supported and having faith and courage and optimism, even when things look. I was getting the sensation of having one's back against the wall in some situation as being, it seems situationally very relevant in the moment, but ultimately at the end of the day, the the surface behind us is actually a door. When our back is against the wall, perhaps sometimes that rather than fight, we can jump out a window or out a door. Um, Symbolically, just exiting a situation that's a dead end. Why dedicate our resources to something that is not being reciprocal in the value that it's providing to us? Certain situations are no better than the next situation, and in fact have no inherent value of themselves other than um, I want to say currency. The currency they hold is just that they have a placeholder in our lives now. That's the comfort zone of the discomfort zone, something that costs us in some way, energetically, financially, or otherwise, and isn't returning on that investment of our time, energy, or attention. You should know that the way that you feel in the space, particularly by yourself, is the energy that's being regenerated there. And it's up to us to decide for ourselves if we can shift that energy, transmute that energy to change the way that we feel into more delight and happiness and romance and closer to our idealized goals and thoughts. What would we be envious about in another, and how can we take our situation and create it for ourselves instead of looking to others to say, oh well, that would be nice, but that's not for me, I've got my back against this wall. It's like literally kind of deciding for yourself that something needs to be relinquished, perhaps seems like a sacrifice, in faith and trust that there must be better. If you are not happy here and cannot shift and change a dead end situation, exit stage left is kind of how I'm feeling. And then we get the dynamic card. In this moment, it's the dynamics of a situation are feeling either draining or refreshing. And we can show ourselves, if we look at several situations in our lives, are we balancing ourselves in these ways, and what are we getting back from these? And as we make that decision, that choice point here of for our own resonance, I'm sensing that there could be the fear of a bunch of chaos, but I want to offer the idea that what is chaos other than the cauldron of creative energies that have been perhaps deconstructed into their base level, elemental, structural resourcefulness, meaning that they have ultimate potentiality. They're not locked into anything at this point. When something becomes so-called destroyed, the matter doesn't disappear. All it does is transition forms from solid and locked in to having all of these, like somebody broke your Lego set and now you have all of these bricks. And that concept of, perhaps if this is meaningful to you, being the master builder who used to, before being awakened, look at this pile of bricks and say, you smashed my stuff, I just lost all of this hard work and blah blah blah. But now this is the opportunity to say to yourself, how would I have done it better knowing what I knew about that, it had all of these great things, but were there any things that may have been missing or that could have been renovated or revisited? And within an existing structure, if it hasn't deteriorated or been destroyed, or within a situation that seems like something needs to give way, breaking things down and bringing everything out into the open and exposing the building blocks allows for a stronger foundation to be built. And if this is a manifestation here, by intending the highest, you can become not only curious, but romantic and idealize the outcome that you would prefer. It's not about what is to be lost. You've already had that. You got that gold medal. You have that thing that may be going away. And how would you do it better? So there's better coming if we intend it. Oh, if we allow it. Allowance. Thank you, Spirit. Then we get divine feminine here. Be ready to receive. The allowance of the divine feminine here under consciousness and delight is like, it's our ability to understand the resonance that we're allowing in our life, the awareness of our limitations, where we're spent, where we're rebuilt, and where those boundaries need to go, but we're allowing ourselves to receive. And if we're locked into a situation that isn't serving the highest, that isn't making us happy, maybe creating some fears or old wounds to be brought up to the surface. Just because we have more wounding that is in the process of healing doesn't mean that we need to engage other individuals that are going to constantly trigger that wound. We can heal that wound in a healthier, more gentle way. Yes, prosperity here at the end of the code cards, the realization of our own prosperity here. So at the bottom of the deck, realization of our alchemical ability to literally restructure our chemical, our biochemistry here for a greater fertility of cycle. If you can follow what I mean by that, it's saying that by shifting ourselves, whether it's through self-care or otherwise, into delighted frequencies, happiness, instead of the conflict or drama that others are engaged in and perhaps even addicted to, now that we no longer want to resonate in those ways, we can decide very clearly to set a boundary with ourselves to not allow that into our situations. And that when we do recognize it, we have the authority and the wisdom and the character and the divinity to speak up and set that limitation with a very clear statement of intention in whatever way that feels right, depending on situations, without becoming provoked, without becoming reactionary and retaliatory. We can honor the emotional surge that happens when other individuals around us are unhealed or trying to provoke us in some type of a way, which is no longer needing to be something that belongs to us, I would say. So the realization here is the allowance of ourselves to receive from our truth and in our resonance, our center, keeps us aligned with our growth cycle and helps us keep on believing in that further optimism. It's like, yes, when we choose a couple things, you will see pronounced difference in the outcomes that surround you almost immediately. If you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, your blessings will really show themselves. Your synchronicities will show themselves to you. But it's through the ability to not only say yes to opportunities, but I believe the important context here is that holy hell no. That feels good, doesn't it? No more. I can't do this anymore. I can't feel this way anymore. I'm done with learning this lesson over here. And we don't need to have the answer. We only need to declare to the universe and to ourselves that our resonance is so beyond those old dynamics. We've advanced too far to tolerate the intolerable. As we advance, we can no longer wade around in toxic waters in the same way that we were able to numb ourselves in the past. And that's evidence of our healing. That's evidence of our consciousness evolution journey. And it's evidence that we're more delighted than these individuals who are still being miserable. And we don't need to allow them to trigger us into backsliding. And during this Mercury retrograde coming up here, we're really looking at those dynamics. And don't get lost in any self-correction, shame and guilt and self-judgments here. It's about recognition so that we can be better. Because once we know better, then we can do better. That's what it's all about. I'd like to get an oracle card from the Mixed Kali Kuan Yin deck, and this one came out yesterday. It's gorgeous. I wanted to just show you that imagery before I pre-shuffled and just hang out there for a moment. And it says, sometimes we really just feel like we need our mother. And whether or not that mother was what we thought we needed or expected, whether or not that mother was able to physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically be there for us in the way that we needed at that time, we can allow ourselves to feel the embrace of spirit, God, the divine, the great mother, the great grandmother, the ancestral lines, and the entire universal, multiversal Akash is all holding us in that pocket of love and delight. That's the delight energy. And we're learning how to feel that when our back is against the wall, that's when we're being held. That's when we're getting a divine push that says, you've retreated far enough away from this situation. Let me give you something to push against so that you can move forward again. I like that. Boy, my voice is something else today. I'm dried out. Maybe we need to address our own emotional consciousness, hydration. Are you overhydrated? Are you underhydrated? Representing our chakra balance. I believe it would be the sacral chakra. The water element rules the sacral chakra, the second chakra, and the base of the gut, reproductive organs, our ability to have that sense of belonging. Under the deck, the threshold. That's so gorgeous. 39. It looks dark, right? But this, with your back against the wall, it's the threshold of a doorway or a window that we can pop through. There's the powers in our hands to affect this change. 2 cards coming out. I've seen both of these recently. This Khadga number 9 here was underneath this card the other day, but I know I've shuffled these out of order and back into order, so they come out for a reason. And when I had the Tao out, this Dhumavati card, this number 22, did show itself, I believe. And now we have, where did that 22 card go? Well, you probably know I get in the channel and I can't use my logical mind as much. So these two together, it's really talking about being able to cross over a threshold with a lot of intuitive wisdom to use the tools of spirit in our hands to cut away any injustices, anything that has been out of alignment, out of balance in our lives, in order that we can emerge from the darkness. It's like saying that the worst is over and we're moving into a new cycle of prosperity. So I'll read you just a little bit and we'll close this out. So Khadga, she wields the holy sword of divine severance, walking away from what does not serve, right? Empowering the soul in radical letting go. She instills the courage to bear the pain of loss and the wisdom to realize. We have the card of realization. And the courage to and the wisdom to realize the secret blessing that can only arise when we embrace change. Where our strength of will may falter, she intervenes to ensure we do not sabotage our ultimate fulfillment and spiritual progress. She will not allow our souls to be ensnared in any kind of deception or trapped in fear. She is the liberator, and her sword clears the path, revealing truth. So if you did not feel that you had the sword or the capacity to clear these situations or this engaging, triggering business from your mind and spirit, the divinity embodied as that Kali spirit, well, embodied is perhaps the envisioned as Kelly, is coming in to offer us and bestow us with these gifts, saying, I will show you when you've had enough. I will support you and lift you and hold you in that embrace of that holy hell no, because Kelly will. She will cut someone. And I mean that on the symbolic. Don't go cutting folks. All right. In Dhumavati, it's as though somebody has really had that toxic energy. We've got to stand up and take back our power from parasitic situations or old karma. Beloved mother who dwells in the smoke, who presides over the most difficult transitions. She who knows that certain endings are unavoidable. They are necessary predecessors to radical reinvention. That word radical came out in both. Did you notice? So something chaotic and very unprecedented. Something mind-blowing. Radical reinvention. And how is that pertaining to your story in your life, right? Her presence brings the message that though disappointment, defeat, or loss, or the negative repercussions of such experiences may cause suffering, for a time, they will not limit your future happiness. They're a means for opening as yet unrecognized pathways for fulfillment. That's the window or the door that we're speaking about. Your trust and faith must be unconditional at this time, or else you'll get lost in fear and stagnant, freezing up in the fear response, right? Or fight. And later you shall see that everything has worked out for the absolute best. So any retreat at this time has to be for our highest good, not for escaping to tolerate things into things like addiction or codependency, and not fighting because conflict energy only distracts our energy from building and places all of our resources on the tearing down. Now, of course, there's a time and a place for everything in the universe, and all deconstructive energies can have the ultimate string of truth within them. But right now, severance and support to see the pathways that are opening up when we feel that we are at the end of our so-called rope. We're being able to operate in new ways that show clear boundaries and show such extreme growth. I think that you're ready to have an incredible breakthrough by releasing something to receive. Keeps coming up through these eclipse channelings, and we're in eclipse season, folks, at the time of this broadcast, so it'll be going on all of 2024. And what we're building, what we're releasing now, is liberating us. So the best way to steer or to embrace changes that are mandatory is to be the one who decides, the one who steers the change. So I hope that helps. Take care of you, and my apologies. And check back for more messages later. I can't even reach this. Take care, guys.